Next up we have, I'm delighted that we have Niall Moran, Director of Technology Centre, Microsoft Ireland. With over 20 years experience in the tech industry, Niall currently runs the Dublin Technology Centre for Microsoft, where he helps customers envision how technology can drive business agility. Prior to Microsoft, Niall worked as a technology consultant and a CTO. Niall is a frequent speaker at technology and business conferences on topics such as like culture, artificial intelligence, and the Internet of Things. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome Niall Moran, who will discuss the future from an alternative perspective.
Thank you. I think it's easy when we think about all of this technology, and the word disruptive was used a lot today. It's easy to imagine a future that's a little bit scary. You know, you think about quantum computing, we think about how, you know, we'd be able to do things exponentially quicker, exponentially faster than we can do today. It's really important that we do the right things. When you think about AI, you think about how AI is infusing itself in everyday life. How is that going to look in the future? You know, so it's really important that we do the right thing with AI as well. So it's really easy, and if you're like me and you've watched things like Black Mirror, Connected, or A Social Dilemma on Netflix, it's really easy to envision a future that's not terribly nice or positive from a human point of view. So today I want to consider an alternative perspective on this. And there's two things that I would suggest we need to do. Number one, right now, we need to start looking at how responsible we are around technology, our ethics around technology, and that's really important that we start that now. And I think every business needs to take that on, not just the Microsofts and Googles of the world. I'm not going to dive too deep into our responsible AI framework, but that is a really important piece of work that Microsoft is doing right now. The second thing I would suggest I'm going to talk about today in more depth, we have some significant challenges on the planet right now. We've pandemic, we've got global warming, we've got sustainability. These are the things we should focus our efforts on. And if we focus our efforts on these, this is how we'll develop an alternative perspective on what the future could look like for the human race. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about artificial intelligence. And I'm going to talk about AI because I don't see this as a disruptive technology. I just see it as a technology that's currently infused into pretty much everything that we do. We may not realize that, but it is. And AI has been around for quite a while as well. It's been around for decades. So it's hard to describe it as something that's disrupting our society. But it is slowly but surely changing society. And it is slowly but surely enhancing what we do, as well as taking away from what we do in certain circumstances. And just to kind of level set on where we are at with AI, like I said, it's been around for decades. But it's really only in the last few years that we've broken ground in AI in very specific areas we call cognitive capabilities, areas where we can automate what humans do. So breaking ground in these areas means meeting or surpassing human parity. And these are industry-wide standardized tests that Microsoft have broken ground in over the last 4 years. And this is a really important message. It's really only in the last few years that we've broken this ground. So we're at this kind of tipping point around AI, and it's really important that we get it right going forward. This is an example of one area that we've broken ground in the last 2 months only. And this is the idea that we can really understand what's going on in a photo. We've had photo recognition, object detection for quite a while now. But the difference between identifying an object in a photograph or an image and actually understanding what's going on in the image is a huge leap forward in terms of deep learning and AI. To be able to do that, we need to understand the context of what's going on in the image. And this is a groundbreaking research that's only really gotten to human parity in the last 2 months. So this is the ability to take contextual captions out of images. And think about this from the point of view of accessibility. You know, think about this from the point of view of automating the process of creating alternate text for images on websites, or for describing to somebody with a visual impairment what's going on in front of them in an image or in a video, okay? And it's the difference between, for example, if you look at some of these examples, okay, we see a fruit with some leaves, okay? That doesn't tell us a whole lot. It's accurate, and that's what our vision AI can do for us right now. It can tell us that it sees some fruit. But telling us that it's a peach on a particular branch in a tree is a different context, okay? Telling us that the burger has lettuce, that has tomatoes, that's a very different context. So this level of capability is now here. And as I say, is beyond human parity right now. And what that means is we can use this technology to really automate a lot of stuff that humans would have to do. And we'll see some examples of that. Now this brings me into an area we call AI for good. And one example of that is our Seeing AI app. And this takes all of that technology and that groundbreaking research that we've been working on for decades. And it makes it available in a very simple app that people with visual impairments can use. In fact, in the AppleVis Golden Apples Awards, it's won in the last 3 years in a row, either as best app or best assistive app. And all of those services that I talked about earlier on, all of that AI capability is wrapped up in this app, and you can download it from the App Store. I'm just going to run a video now just to give you an example of some of the detail of how this app works.
An experiment to describe your surroundings with Seeing AI.
Seeing AI is an ongoing research project. And in the app, we've also included some of our more experimental features, though you have to turn those on in settings. One of these is the ability to describe a general scene. When you take a photo, the algorithm detects the objects that it can see and tries to find the relationship between them and describe this in a natural sentence. It's still learning, kind of like a kid learns to speak. So, as it learns more things in the world around it, the descriptions will get better over time. Here's an example photo I took earlier.
Processing. Probably a man sitting on a couch using a laptop. Take picture. Processing. A bus that is parked on the side of the road. Button. Take picture. Processing. Probably a box filled with different types of food on a table. Button.
This is just a glimpse at the possibilities of artificial intelligence, and I can't wait to see where this goes in the future.
Microsoft logo appears.
So that's just a really simple example of an app that can be used for good. That example there of captioning images will now be rolled out into that app. And that's the great thing about AI, is it continuously evolves and continuously learns. So as we improve the research, as we add more and more capability to our cognitive capabilities, we can bring those to those apps and other apps and bring them to our customers so that we can build more apps that help humans. So here's another example of AI for good. And AI for Good is a program that Microsoft offer to support businesses, whether they're startup businesses, academic institutes that are looking to use AI for good, use AI for Earth, for humans, for sustainability, or whatever example. We've already invested about 100 million in this particular program. And on the screen, you can see the link where you can actually go and apply for grants. And these grants come in the form of access to cloud-based resources for AI or technical resource and engineering resources within Microsoft to help. And a couple of examples of these, WildMe, who's developed open source platforms for identifying wildlife. This is really important for the preservation of our wildlife, okay? And the first step in doing this, the first step of preserving wildlife is to actually track them, to understand how many zebras, for example. We have examples of snow leopards as well. How many do we have? Where are the clusters? How can we track their travel and population? And typically how that's done is through video footage. And video footage, hours and hours of video footage tracked by humans. Now, if you think about it, if we have vision AI that can recognize a zebra in these videos automatically, then we can automate that entire process. So this is a great example of how, now that we've got vision AI that's reached human parity, we can automate a lot of this capability. The same with OceanMind, who are trying to control illegal fishing in certain oceans. They can track the movement of vessels, but how can they track the activity on the vessels? How can we decide if it looks like somebody is fishing on that vessel as opposed to not fishing on a vessel? So they're using custom vision AI to train the AI models to really understand what is the behavior of fisher when people are fishing on these boats, and using that to alert authorities about illegal fishing. A couple of other areas that are really important going forward. If you think about sustainability, Microsoft have committed to be carbon negative within the next 10 years. At the same time, we're scaling out our data centers globally, adding more and more data centers literally on a monthly basis. And when we look at some of the energy usage in the data centers, we can see huge inefficiencies. So for example, storage. We're using the same capabilities, the same technology in storage that we have been for years, and it's really inefficient. First of all, storage disks don't last terribly long, so we're constantly having to replace them. We're constantly having to destroy them for data sensitivity reasons. Also, because of the reliability of disks, we have to replicate data all the time. So we're constantly replicating data, which means data is being duplicated. So all of the energy that's required to store data is also being duplicated as well. So what if we could store data in a much more resilient way, in a way that took a lot less energy, that didn't need to be replicated? And that's what Project Silica is. And this came out of a piece of work that Microsoft are doing with University of Southampton, where we're actually storing data on glass. So what we can do is, using really, really fast pulse lasers, we can etch into glass. And we can etch into the glass at a particular distance, particular size, and particular orientation. And that's allowing us to store data in bits, 3 bits. And we can do that in such that a 5 by 5 centimeter square of this glass can be used to store 50 terabytes of data. We're also looking at how we could store data in DNA. And a small sample the size of the tip of a pencil can be used to store 100 terabytes. The great thing about Project Silica and the glass is it's almost indestructible. You can do whatever you want to the quartz glass. You can heat it, you can scratch it, you can do whatever you want. The data will still be there, and it's easy to recover that data. We just need lasers, and we just need to be able to read that data off the glass. Of course, when we're finished with the data, there's not a big expensive destruction process. The glass can be melted. So right now, Project Silica is storing about 50 to 100 terabytes of data on small pieces of glass. The objective of this particular piece of research is to be able to bring that capability into our data centers and stop our reliance on old, not very sustainable ways of storing data. Project Sirius is a very similar approach in the networking world. So even with optical networking, there's a lot of conversion that goes on, converting from photons to electrons, so converting from optical networks into electrical. And this has to happen for switching and for routing within the data centers. But it actually happens a lot. So every time that happens, there's energy usage, and of course that builds up over a hyperscale cloud. So what Project Sirius is doing is looking at how can we break the light, the optical networks, how can we break that light, kind of like shining light through a prism into its constituent colors, and use that light then to switch, and actually create optical switches that replace the need to continuously switch from photons to electrons, only do it once. And then the added benefit of that is you're doing it at light speed, so you get faster networks, optical-only networks. And that's a project that's currently underway within Microsoft Research. We already have a chip that can be used to do that, and over the next number of years, we expect to see that roll out within our data centers. The other big problem that we have on the planet right now, I mean, it's obviously with COVID right now, we're very aware of it. But what if when we get past COVID, what if when we get a cure or a vaccine for COVID, what if there's another one right around the corner? How can we use some of this technology to predict global pandemics? And that is really something that Microsoft want to focus in on and work on and help society in this way. So Project Premonition is the beginning of that. We're looking at mosquitoes. Mosquitoes are one of the most dangerous animals on the planet. They carry a lot of different viruses around with them. If we can track mosquitoes and if we can actually understand how viruses are spreading across the globe, if we can understand how viruses are spreading from mosquitoes or from other animals into humans, we can start to get ahead of some of these viruses, start to get ahead of some of these pandemics. So to explain this, I'm going to roll another video to give you a sense of what we're trying to achieve.
The overall goal of this project is to monitor infectious agents as they move across the planet. So in the end game, we'd like to have a global system available that detects new infectious agents and then monitors their movement as they emerge. In this way, we could intervene before they become an epidemic or before they become an infectious problem for humans or wildlife.
The mosquito is the most dangerous animal on the planet because it carries so many pathogens. What we want to do is to be able to catch that mosquito efficiently, at scale, and at low cost.
Current collection technologies are very limited and present a lot of biases. When we do this in the field now, it takes a lot of effort and money and personnel time. The big challenge is going to be creating new traps that can collect mosquitoes that's drone portable and that can be automated in a very efficient way.
What our team will do is take the mosquitoes and then deep sequence them. The results of that sequencing will be placed through a series of computational steps that will detect viruses and will distinguish between viruses that are known viruses and those that are novel viruses. So right now, our ability to analyze these sequences depends on computer power. We're going to have to expand our computational power, and we're going to have to develop new algorithms that can process the data much faster.
What we want to apply to achieve a goal like this are our advanced operating systems, analysis tools to find bugs in software before they're in the wild, machine learning and vision to add complex autonomy into these drones so that they can make decisions. And then finally, cloud computing and genomics so that we can, at scale, analyze the complex data we obtain. I believe in the next 5 years, a system like this is attainable.
So just to summarize, I think, there is a scary future ahead of us if we think about AI in a certain way, if we think about technology in a certain way, which is a disruptive way. We have to take control of it now. We have to think about responsible AI, responsible technology. I think the onus is on every company to really think about that. So when you're working with AI systems, thinking about the ethics around that. I do think we have an alternate future. I think we can save the planet, and I think we can help the human race. We can help people that need it most, and we can do that with this technology if we all put a significant focus into that. If you'd like to learn more, you can check out our website on innovation. Thank you very much.
Niall Moran, Director of Technology Centre, Microsoft Ireland. Thank you very much.